So Hannah just asked a really important question that I think is important that we address, since she didn't ask it in first the first video. What about safety? So is there a specific question that you'd like to ask?
It's just where it's coming from is, I mean, I don't live in a high crime area, but it's just that, growing up with the whole stranger danger, don't trust people you meet on the internet and that kind of stuff. So I'm just wondering about safety and things like
All right, so I'll tell you first from personal experience. Again, this is after 700 hours. I've had more than 700 hours. I've never felt scared. Even the person that actually pulled out his penis in a session, I did, like, you think like, oh shoot, like that thing happened, they were confused for a second, like what they were doing there. No, like even that, I never felt scared. I guess it's each person, what you bring, what stories you bring. But I also need to be honest that I've never been sexually nor physically assaulted, at least not in my memory. So those questions don't come up. And because I'm not scared or afraid of men, I think I don't bring them to the table. I think and you're talking about like stranger danger. Like I grew up, I grew up in Illinois, a few hours from you, and it's a town of 5,000 people at the time. And I would get on my bike and I would bike all around town. Like that was how I grew up, very free. And so for me, there was no danger. And I practiced the mantra that the universe is the universe is a friendly place. And so I think for my personal practice, I expect friendly. I think the other part, and this is very much me, I would say other people that do cuddling and are touch practitioners wouldn't relate with me. So I'm only speaking from my personal experience. And what I've noticed, what's happened with me, is I put out there, like, just vibrationally or in my heart, I say, no one was going to cross, like no one's going to cross through my door. Like no one's coming into my home that's here to harm me. Like, and I won't actually say it like that. I'd be like, the only people that are coming to me are those who truly are coming with the heart that needs this. They understand this work and they want this. Like I make it very clear that that's the only people that are coming in. So I'll have kind of regularly someone that, well, pretty consistently, that I will call someone who said they wanted a session and they don't call me back. Or I'll talk to them on the phone. This has been a while, this hasn't happened, but they'll hang up on me during our phone conversation. Or they'll say, I'll call you right back to schedule a time, and they don't. I've had people that they've scheduled a session and then they don't show, or they're on their way and they never make it. Like all of those options. And I don't make it about me. I didn't do anything. I think it's them. And in my head, I think, well, they maybe had another intention. Maybe they wanted, I don't know. And I just assume that that's like the universe, God, higher power, or whatever. Like I'm being taken care of at all times. And that's just the belief that I have. And that's what's happened. I find that's a little bit woo-woo, and maybe that's, I can see this, I can hear the skeptics going, whatever. But, being very clear, like this is what I do. I'm a professional. I expect to be respected, and having that confidence. And then on top of it, adding this piece, it's like, yeah.
Do you have mostly male clients, or do you have female clients as well?
I do have some female, but it's mostly male. And I think for good reason. If you like, I can explain why I think men are at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So men are at a disadvantage for platonic touch because men are already seen as predatory. If there's a man who wants touch, it's like, and especially if it's platonic, it's not trusted. We see men as being, the violators of consent and of touch, and they only want one thing, and we've labeled them. And so even this, like the question of safety is I'm assuming when you said, are you safe? You're assuming that's men that would hurt me and not women. And that's a huge assumption. And I, like, for me to work through my own like issues around that and thinking, men can't hurt me. Like men love me. So presumptuous. Men I love it. Men are wonderful. Men are honest. Men are,
They're just people.
they're people that have the same needs that I do, and have, we all have at some level of touch needs. And there are men that have their love language is touch. Like, and if you read Mr. Chapman's book on the love languages, the 5 love languages, even his chapter is kind of a sexual, it's leaning towards sexual, because like even when that book was written, they didn't have a concept of platonic touch that can happen between humans, not just couples. So it's like we don't, our world isn't touch friendly for men, for platonic touch. And then men, and like we think, okay, which egg or chicken or the egg situation? Like, so then what is it? Is it that like the way that they're so sexually aggressive, does it have anything to do with sex? It may not at all. Or the way that they're physically aggressive, does it have anything to do with anger and like wanting to get physical? Maybe not. Maybe that's the only way they can access touch. Mm-hmm. And that's the tricky part. And then you're dealing with children at that point. Like, how many of those children, like those adults as children, they didn't receive that touch? And you're just looking at like, at what level do you, Hannah, want to work? Because there's a huge need to help parents and families figure out touch throughout the whole life of the child up until 17, 18, right? Like there's no one's doing that work, right? Like that's a need. And then you have the adults that come later, and then I can break this down to like all the different age groups after and into adulthood, and then, which group do you want to work with? So going back to that question of safety, I don't ask the question because it's not relevant to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hear that. I mean, when I hear that I myself ask the question, it's like I'm hearing my parents in my head, and that's a belief that I took on. So one of the beliefs that I would like to work on. Yeah. I feel safe. I've always felt safe, even when I go for walks at night and my mom says, "You're going for a walk at night?" I feel, I don't let that into my mind that that's not a safe option for me. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. Thank you. That's helpful.
But people want to love and protect you. And I never told my parents I never told my dad what I do. I just chose not to. And my mom, I think little by little. So like my family, no one in my family has ever like sat down and talked to me about what I do. And I think that's okay. I mean, it's probably better if they're going to say something from their own place of fear and anxiety. I'd probably rather not hear it because it's not my story. But like friends and family, I guess that's the other thing is I haven't had to deal with this question other than people like you, like who's like, how do you stay safe? And I'm like, I don't know, you screen them very well. Like when you get a client, you screen, you talk to them, you ask them to tell you why they want to come to have a session with you. Like find out what their heart is. If you don't hear their heart, then don't see them. Right? If they're evading questions, if they're evading a screening, then you can say no. And I think that's the thing is if you feel unsafe, you can say no. And how many women, especially women, feel like they can't. So like, well, what if I feel unsafe? Then I can't get out. I'm like, you can. What if in the screening I feel unsafe? Then say no. And I think that's hard. Middle of the session, getting up and walking out like I did, that's hard. Saying, I'm not okay with this. That's our work. Yeah. And because that might be the first time that man has ever even heard that. Yeah. Especially if they're paying for it. Like if they think, I'm paying for you, you're supposed to do what I want you to do. And that whole idea of paying, girlfriends, like partners also get this, well, you're my girlfriend or you're my wife. Like I bought you. I do little things for you. You owe this to me. Like it's hard for us even in that position to say, no, I don't feel safe and I don't like this.
Cool. Thank you for answering that question.
That's a great question. All right, I'm going to say goodbye to all our Facebook people again. Bye.